Hello, paper crafting friends. This is Beverly from scrapandthread.blogspot.com. And today I wanted to share with you how I use stencils to make embellishments. Obviously, you can make embellishments from lots of different kinds of products, but what I'm using today are an old stencil and a new stencil. And I'm using the Nuvo Glimmer Paste in um, green, and I've used it in Moonstone. I'm also using the Glitz Glitter Gel from Gina K Designs in Wild Lilac, and I did use some black before. What I'm showing you here is how I used a stencil. It's a multi-layer stencil. This one has 2 layers, and I use just regular ink to paper, and then I put some of the Moonstone Nuvo Glimmer on top, and it makes this beautiful two-toned effect with a lot of nice little glittery, glitzy stuff. And then the second one that I'm showing you, I inked straight to paper with that same stencil. And then I used the top stencil, which has the veining on it, and used green ink, and then used the Moonstone again, and that took on the color of the ink underneath. And that's more of the typical way of using stencils with paste, modeling paste, or any kind of a glimmer product that you can kind of spackle on. And so what I'm showing you now is what I did with the stencils, exact same stencil with the leaves, and I used once again the Glitz Glitter Gel from Gina K and also the Nuvo Glimmer, and I used the silver to make those leaves. And I did this on freezer paper, and then I let it sit for several days to dry so that I could peel it off. So the papers that I'm showing you with the leaves already done on them, that is a stencil set that comes from the stamp market. And I'm not using that in the demonstration later. I'm just showing you what I've already done from that. When you peel off the leaves or whatever it is that you've made from the freezer paper, it's very flat on one side, and the other side is rough. It's got a little bit of a texture to it. The thicker that you apply the paste or the glimmer gel to the stencil, the better or the more secure it will be when you try to take it off, because it won't be as likely to rip. If you make it pretty thin, you can cut it out with just regular scissors as close to the edge as possible and adhere it down to whatever you're doing with foam tape or glue or however you want to adhere it. If it's really hard to pull it off, I would stop and just cut it out. But if it should peel off fairly easily once it's dried, and I would say give it at least 24 hours to really kind of cure on your plastic coated freezer paper. And I have found freezer paper works really well because of that plastic coating, and that is why I prefer to use that. Now obviously you can apply the gel to your project just exactly, wherever you want to have it. The reason why I'm making embellishments, though, is I like to stack my things. So in this case, I'm showing you the leaves that I stacked underneath a panel on a card, and then I can also manipulate them, rearrange them, and they can also be raised up off of the card base by using some foam dots. By making your own embellishments, you have more control over what you're doing and how you place things, the colors that you can use. And also, I have found if you make them separately, then you don't have the problem with sometimes some of the colors of different pastes bleed into your ink, or they could sometimes bleed into your cardstock depending on the kind of cardstock you're using. And so it just gives you overall some more control. And it's kind of a fun technique. If you make a lot at once and let them all dry, I would store them on the freezer paper or whatever paper you decide to put it on, because they will be a little bit fragile, and it's best for them to have something stable underneath. So here I'm just scooping up some of the Glitz glitter gel and plopping it down onto the stencil, filling in the gaps of whatever shapes it is that I want to make. This is a Crafter's Workshop stencil with the birds on it, and this would be fun for an art journal, a card, scrapbook layouts, whatever it is that you want to make. And then you want to make sure you do wash off your stencils, because it has an adhesive to it, and it will stick. The Glitz and the Glimmer paste will stick to your stencils, and it can be kind of a pain to try to clean off later when it's dried. It's a lot easier to do it while it's still wet. If you're doing a bunch at once, you might want to have, a sink full of warm water and just throw them in there. So now this is another stencil. It's another layered stencil. It's a set of, I think it was 5 from Pink Fresh Studios, and this one I just took one of those layers so that I could make some leaves out of the green Nuvo Glimmer paste, and then I had some extra purple on my scraper thing, and so I made some purple leaves as well to just kind of fill in where I could on that piece of freezer paper. This, because they're very small, this didn't take nearly as long to dry as the birds did, but you have the same kind of effect, and it's just a really fun way to add something that you can customize to your own project. When you're using a wet media for making embellishments, it's a good idea to use a paper that's not going to be absorbent, because in this case there's adhesive in these both of these products that I was using, and they would stick to a cardstock or any kind of paper. So parchment would work, wax paper would work, and then this is what the freezer paper looks like. The reason why I like the freezer paper best is because it is thicker, so it's a little more sturdy. It's plastic coated on one side. Wax paper it has a coating on it, but it's very thin, and parchment doesn't really have a coating that's as easy to peel off of. I'm showing you a stencil that I used. It's a snowflake. It's a Lawn Fawn little stencil. And if you want to make it into a snowflake, you would need to take the stencil off after applying the Glitz glitter gel or the glimmer paste, and then try to connect the spokes of the snowflake so that it's all one continuous piece. However, in my case, I was using it because I wanted to make like little twigs or little branches, and so I wanted the individual pieces. So I encourage you to look at your stencils and see if you can make embellishments to go with your projects that are customized for your own situation, the colors that you want, and how you want to use them. But also look at your stencils with an eye towards using them in maybe not as traditional a way, like for instance the snowflake as twigs. So I'm showing you that purple came off really easily from the freezer paper, and the glimmer in it is really beautiful. It's just a really nice touch. And the other reason why I like this is because you don't end up with glitter everywhere. It doesn't flake off, and it's a very pretty look, but it's also, once you are done making it, it's not a messy process. Making it is a little bit messy, and you do want to make sure you protect your surfaces, because it is a glue and it will stick to stuff. I had made 2 birds, and so I started to peel this one off, and I'm showing you how easy it is to pull off the rest of it. It's pretty thick, and so it comes off pretty easily, and you just want to gently pull it off. And then for adhesion to the product, whatever I was making, I used mixed media adhesive from iCraft. I like the bottle because it has a thin tip, and it has worked really well for gluing everything down onto my projects. I've also used different kinds of foam squares, some from ThermoWeb and 3M, and I mean just pretty much every brand. And so this is what I'm going to do with at least one of the birds and one of the twigs and some of the leaves. Is I made a scrapbook layout, and I did end up popping up that bird with some foam tape. I hope you have fun making your own embellishments, and if you have any questions, please contact me at scrapandthread.blogspot.com. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a great day. Bye-bye.